We're going to start with Marguerite Berg, who is spends 2 days a week at our school and 2 days a week at the middle high school as a mental health therapist through a partnership with our ESD, which is our Educational Service District. We are served by ESD 189, which is out of Anacortes. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you, Brooke, how many school districts each ESD serves? Do you know? Yeah.
So there's over five. Over 5 counties and about 5 counties and over 30 school districts that we serve.
All right.
So as so I work with the Northwest Educational Service District, and they provide services and supports to various services and supports to schools. And I am assigned to the South, excuse me, South Woodby School District. And so I provide school-based mental health K through 12, and I am here Wednesdays and Fridays, and then I'm at the middle high school Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And so what I brought here today, just handouts so that you can have, it talks about different services that are included, program background, referral process, and who we serve. And so I work with students who are experiencing anxiety, depression, students who have experienced some traumatic life, experience. And I collaborate and work with parents, caregivers, other guardians for the children. I've been here for almost 4 years with the district, primarily at the middle high school. And so it's been a pleasure working with students here, and so I'm just here briefly this morning because I do have to head out to see a student. So that's why I'm going to be leaving these materials here with you. We also, because we work with the cognitive behavioral model, I've just left these little handouts as well. So that gives you an idea of what the model is. And I'm going to put them here on the table. Go ahead and grab them. If you have any additional questions, though, you can always feel free to reach out to me. Okay? Thank you.
We have a referral process. So if someone's interested in learning more about Marguerite's services here at the elementary school, you can reach directly out to me. We have a referral form. No child is seen without parent permission. So the first step of that process is after the referral form is submitted, a parent can ask for that referral or a teacher. But again, Marguerite never sees the child unless the parent is on board. So just reach out via email if you're interested in learning more or gaining a referral. Good morning. So really excited about this presentation. I really thank you all for being here. We're trying, to be as transparent as we can with our families because your partnership is critical to our work with our children and your children, all of our children. So it means a lot when you show up, and I'm really grateful. Looking forward to this conversation. It's really always kind of fun for me to, we live this every day, right? And so to have to put it together and really look at it, it's really good for us and it feels really good. So here we go. Christy, do you mind going to the next slide? So we want to start out by talking about, we have what's called a tiered system of supports. And I'm just going to have you jump in wherever you feel. Please. We've become a really good team here in presentations. We just did our school improvement plan to our school board, and it's so fun to have a partner with me. So our first layer of support, tier 1, we're what's called a PBIS school, and a PBI school is based on using positive behavioral intervention supports to support children behaviorally and socially and emotionally. We have our ORCA code, which hopefully you all know about. And we love it when families use that same language at home because it's, again, the more we can have that partnership between home and school, the better it is for our students and everyone. We also use a social emotional learning curriculum called Caring School Communities. I wish we would have brought. Do you think bring one? Do you want to grab one? Okay, you're allowed to run, jog in the hallway. I'd love you to see it. It's a really comprehensive, it's aligned. Middle school uses it as well, but it's also by grade level. So it's made to be developmentally appropriate at each grade level, but consistent language and approaches throughout their um, ITK through eighth grade learning experience, which is really cool. Um, so every morning, there's some kind of morning circle, depending on the grade band, what it looks like, but really all about, no, go, Christy, are you sure? Okay, hi, good morning. Um, so it will look different in each classroom, but that's a consistent thing that you'll see, that those morning circles, that opportunity to build, because building community in the classroom is the first step in building a healthy, socially, emotionally balanced classroom and school. Next slide, please. Positive behavior, we try to really recognize positive behavior in a variety of ways. Orca bucks, I don't know if any of you have heard about Orca bucks, but children can earn those by teachers and recess supervisors get a pile of these each month. Melissa Field, our volunteer coordinator, runs that program for us. Anna and Brooke have been very involved since the beginning in our Orca store. So once a month, Melissa brings out the Orca store and children can come out and spend their Orca bucks at the Orca store. The really cool thing is they can also buy class experiences, which they have to pool their bucks. Like it's $50 for a popcorn party or an extra experience out at recess. So it both creates the feedback for having positive behavior. It makes them have to save their Orca bucks, which in and of itself can be, a good thing. And then they can work together and collaborate. This is a picture from Orca Students of the Month in my office. We do this monthly and teachers nominate a couple kids. The hope is that every child will be recognized by the end of the school year. They get called over the intercom, will so-and-so come to the principal's office, please? So it's, what's happening? And then we have a big celebration in my office and my treasure box comes out and they get to bring home a certificate and a sticker. So that's really a fun positive behaviors that we engage in. Please jump in and ask any questions as I'm going along here. Restorative conversations. How many of you are aware of what restorative? Raise your hand if you've heard about that. Okay, so our entire district staff went through training. Gosh, I think it's been 3 years ago now. By a team called the Restorative Justice Ed team, I think out of New York. And we had multiple sessions with them. It was one of the best training experiences for our district. And it really moved us to a place of many of the conflicts that arise between children or between children and adults can be worked with effectively through restorative conversations. There's a process that we go through. We always have an adult facilitator. We have a talking piece. And I'm telling you, it's the most beautiful thing. Even kindergartners, when they have the opportunity to talk about what happened for the person who caused the harm and the person who received the harm, to talk to one another in a facilitated, safe space, it's very powerful. And we use it every single day in our school. Yes.
How do you use that? Like, could you give us examples of when that would come in?
Sure. Most typically, it's conflict at recess. I would
Okay.
say 90% of our restorative conversations. So 2 children will be trotted in by a recess supervisor after they've had a conflict. They're, and Kristen or I or Aaron or Carly, one of our behavior folks, we've all been trained, but often teachers don't have the time unless it's a conflict that happened directly in their classroom. And we sit down at the round table in my office or one of the offices and we explain what we're doing. We ask them if they're willing because sometimes they're not ready. Sometimes it takes a couple days. They're too mad. Please jump in. Yeah.
In the younger grades, this is more teacher directed unless it's some big escalation at recess, and that's when they might come in and just need a little more support so that the recess teacher can get back out to supervising. But with younger grades, it can also look a little informal. So it can be like, oh, I heard that you got hurt. Tell me more. What happened? And then they'll give their perspective, and then the other child will give their perspective. And then we like to end with, how can we make this right? And that's not like forcing an apology from anybody, but it's giving the child that maybe did the wrongdoing, an opportunity to make amends so that they're not, so that they are feeling empowered, that they can change their behavior or that they can help make things right. And so often children will come up with, well, I can get them an ice pack. And so I'm looking around to see if there's a parent in here that that was like, well, your child like did get an ice pack, but they actually didn't need one. So when you see them like walking around with an ice pack on their head, it was because they were bumped, in the line. And so they often come up, and then the other child's like, yeah, an ice pack would be great. And then they, go off. And often if it is something that we are dealing with in the office and they're at a place where they can work, like be working together, and they've confronted this together and they're ready to move on, I like to offer them, can you walk back to class together, responsibly? And so now they have this shared responsibility to walk back to class together, and then they have some time to connect with each other. And I think that's been really powerful. Oftentimes you'll see bids for connection in other ways. So maybe they're not wanting to have a restorative circle, but they're like, here's your lunchbox, and it is this bid for connection. So we look for opportunities like that to draw awareness to that with the students and have more conversation. But yeah, mainly just in the younger grades, it can look a little bit less formal.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's not an escalated behavior, but it can be ongoing behavior, which we'll talk more about later. And that has more to do with like peer manipulation, or that girl gave me a glance. And those things are a little more subtle, and they take a little bit more sophisticated conversation. And so those are ones that we are just noting over time. The teachers are noting, parents are reaching out, and then those are often those more formal conversations as well.
Thank you. I think it's an amazing model, the restorative justice model, and it's amazing that you're bringing it in. I would just put in a bid for if there's any way to do a parent training so that parents also have the same language and facilitation skills. That
Great
could be
idea.
really impactful.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
And even if it's something that, we pay privately for participants.
Can I address that?
Same
Oh,
thing.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you. Not that any of my kids have ever been through this, but I've heard that a child now and then will go into a restorative circle, and as parents, we have to kind of listen to what they're saying, because I've actually heard someone say, "Well, it didn't help me, and I just told the teacher what I thought the teacher wanted to hear." Parents, it's really important for us to go back and say, got to be honest. And if it means that you don't close to have, that us as parents have to step in and make sure that that is taken care of.
To your point of parent training, the school board got trained on this back when we first brought the practice to the district. And I believe that training is on our YouTube page, the district's YouTube page. So it would have been about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I think it was during the summer that the school board got the training. So you might have to dig around a little bit. You could look at the agendas on board documents
Maybe
to see when it happened.
Maybe we could look for that and put it on the Coffee with the Principal page.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But I love that idea. All right. Any other questions on that? Kawa?
Oh, if you're interested in having your child participate, you just reach out to like one of you guys
Yes.
or like, okay.
Yes. Because we don't know everything that happens, right? As much as we wish we did, we don't. So if you're aware of a conflict, excuse me, that's going on, please let us know. This is definitely one for Kristen to talk about.
Okay. So we have some professional development training that is going on all year, and it started last year with Sarah Dominguez and her team. She's from Overlake Specialty School, and she's a PhD candidate. And the Life Space Crisis Intervention is a model to speak with children and help them resolve conflict, and it's very similar and aligns with that RJN, and so a restorative justice. And there's 2 layers to it. So the layer for our entire staff and our entire district, that is more of a tier 1 approach. And that is supporting students. Well, first addressing the adults' role in supporting students and making sure that staff is feeling regulated before they handle conflict, so that we're not counter-aggressive in our approach to supporting students. So if they're saying, I'm mad, and then we say, you're not mad, you look fine. That's, that's not really validating to them. And not that we're saying that, but we just want to make sure that we're all coming at this, supporting our students with the same approach of validating their experiences and understanding. One of the first steps in this training and the way that staff is working with students is to regulate. And that could be regulating themselves, helping to regulate the student who might be having some big behaviors. We do a lot of that through co-regulation. So a student might come to me and they might, or to any staff member, and they might be feeling a little bit stressed out, and you might see that staff member, let's go for a walk. And you might think, well, wait a minute, this kid just blew up in the class and now they get this one-on-one time going for a walk. Like, are you rewarding this behavior? But really that's a strategy to get them regulated, because we can't change behavior by telling a kid that's unregulated how to change their behavior. First, it needs to come from their own insight, which takes time, but they have to be regulated and ready to receive it. So we're regulating ourselves. Relate. So that's about building relationships. So making sure all staff or all students have somebody, a trusted adult that they can count on. And so that's part of our staff development as well. And then the reason, that is the more logical approach to then shifting behavior. So when you're mad, you threw that block, and because you didn't want to clean up. And then eventually when they're regulated, you can get to the point of, what can you do next time when you're mad? Let's think of some strategies you can have. And they're ready to receive that when they're regulated. They have a trusted adult relationship with the person that's helping them, and then they can start to make those behavioral changes. So all of this is to support the student's social emotional development. So that validating, that's a huge, you've asked for parent training. The biggest thing, and I bet many of you are already doing it, is validate how your child's feeling. Nobody loves me. That's a hard one, right? Because maybe they're feeling like that in that moment, and you can validate that you're feeling unloved right now. Those little shifts, instead of saying, no, I love you, that's a counter aggression. So, or even if they're, saying, I'm mad, and they're screaming, you're really mad, and letting them know that you hear them and you see them. And then giving that language to their emotions. If you see me crying, I'm probably not sad, I'm probably mad. So you might say, you look upset. You might be angry, Kristen. Yeah, I am, but I'm crying right now. So just help them to have that language so that later they can help solve problems and help regulate their emotions if they know what they're feeling. Oh, you look really frustrated right now. And then through all that, then we can offer and practice strategies. So staff are trained to, after going through all of this, that now they're going to help the child enter back into whatever environment they were in that they left where they weren't regulated or there was a conflict, and then give them some tools. So not just a pat on the back, you're fine now, but here's how we can support you. The next time you get mad, I heard you say that you're not going to throw a block, but instead you're going to walk away and you're going to ask a teacher for help. Let's practice what that looks like. And so you might do a little role playing depending on the student and what the need is. Okay, so to further this work, we've had 11 of our South Whidbey School District staff attend a week-long training from the same life-based crisis intervention training model, and then even more district-wide. And this just goes a little bit deeper, and it helps those tier 2. And did you already talk about tier 2 and tier 3 students?
No.
Oh, okay. So it helps those. So that first layer that I was talking about, that's what we're doing for all students all across the school. And that's tier 1. We can help everybody with those strategies. And this could also help everybody with those strategies, but this is that next layer. So our tier 2 students who are needing a little more support, and then even tier 3 students who need a lot of support can benefit from these strategies. And so this intensive work using those same strategies of regulating, relationship, and reasoning, but we're also looking at behavioral patterns. So we're identifying what are some behavioral patterns we're seeing over time, and how can we begin to shift those by helping those students provide their own insight. And that isn't done in one session, and it's not done in a month or a week, and it could take a long time depending on what it is. Some of the behaviors are a little more complicated, especially when we get into a behavior called peer manipulation. That one can be a little trickier and takes more time. And that's where parent partnership is really important too, just a side note. So these are some of the strategies that we'll use based on the behavior. So helping students identify the source of the stress. So if they just blew up and threw their backpack and, but it was because they didn't get breakfast, you know, they came in late for school and they didn't get breakfast and they didn't know how to express that, or they didn't get breakfast at home, they spilt their milk, whatever it was. But now it's trickling into the classroom. So helping them identify where that stress might be coming from and then giving them tools to support that. And then learning new ways to understand and perceive situations. So that one's a little more difficult, but a student, you know, might just have a different perception of a situation that they feel a lot of injustice about. And so we will help them to understand others' perspectives. And that one takes time as well. And as children grow, they begin to develop that capacity a little bit more, understanding the other and kind of the whole of the situation. And then building those social emotional skills. So those are for the students where, you know, student might walk in and maybe they don't like that shirt that they're wearing. And they might say, why'd you wear that shirt? And have real curiosity. Why would you wear that? I would never wear that shirt. And helping them to develop like, well, there's, you know, that might be a hurtful thing to say because maybe they took offense to that. So you have students that you're working with, just developing a little more of that nuanced social skill. And then fostering social responsibility. We're all growing to be citizens here, and how can we make sure that we're working together? And then the self-regulation, that's a big piece, but there's students that you see these patterns again and again, that the behavior is related to self-regulation. And so how can we support this student? And that is a lot of practice and coping strategies that are explicitly taught. And then identifying positive relations. And that goes back to the peer manipulation, where it can look like a friend, unkind friendships. And does that really feel like a friend to you? And what kind of friends do you want to have? So kind of supporting students. And then also the student that's being unkind, they need a lot of support, right? I noticed that when you're engaging with your friends, you're saying things that are hurtful to them. Tell me more about that. And so we start to have conversations like that. And then over time, hoping that their behaviors or working towards behavioral shift. And then this is a quote from Dr. Bruce Perry, who is someone that I really respect. And a lot of this life space crisis intervention is built upon his work. Relationships are the agent for change. And you might have heard about me and my Post-its, where I just have little Post-it reminders of things I need to remember. And this is one that I have right on my desk because I believe that's true. And so every student that I'm working with or our staff is working with and that have gone to this training, a question we're asking is this harming a relationship, improving it, or keeping it neutral, so that our interactions are really supporting them.
Now we're going to talk about our tiered systems. We have tiered systems in academics as well as our behavioral and social emotional needs of our students. And tier ones are the everyday little things that happen, little nips and tucks as a parent. You know, it's a daily, oh, you know, maybe think about this, not a big issue, but just helping them on a minute-to-minute basis in the classroom or at recess to do the right thing. These are handled by our recess supervisors and our classroom teachers. We often don't even know about those. And this is just it's like part of being a parent and part of being a teacher and an educator, is helping students, every single student, to reflect and think about the choices that they're making and their behaviors. I wanted to share with you, I got all these little pieces of paper, if you don't mind. This is an example. We do what are called think sheets at this level, and we'll pass these around. This is an example of a kindergarten through second grade. They often will need, especially our K kiddos, adult support to complete these, but it's a way for them to reflect upon what happened and what they can do to make it right. One for older students, our 4th and 5th grade students. It's again just an informal way that a teacher can spend some time reflecting with the student on what's going on. Next slide, please. Tier 2 behaviors are when we begin our documentation process. And we call these blue slips internally. They're officially called office discipline referral forms. I'll pass a few of these around. You'll notice that there's lots of different categories on this sheet that whoever's filling out this sheet makes note of. And the comments on this sheet align with our Swiss data system that I'll talk a little bit about. So these office for tier 2 and tier 3, these are entered into our Swiss data system. And we'll talk more about, we have a student support team and we review our reports that come out. So every single one of these are entered, and then we can print reports that tell us what's going on. You know, we've had the majority of our referrals were in the cafeteria this month, or they were at 8:30 in the morning when the kids are outside. So we can really look, okay, we need some more adult support at this time and at this place. So they help us look individually at student needs as well as school-wide at student needs. Yes, question.
That one of these forms?
Typically not for a tier 2, but for a tier 3, and we'll talk more about what that looks like. It really depends on the situation, whether we connect for a tier 2. These are handled by, yes, Todd.
So does the bus system, transportation system fit into this at all? Because
Yes.
obviously I have a athletic child, so.
We're going to talk.
How does that fit into this, or does it not?
We're going to talk about that. There is a bus write-up slip, but it's separate from these blue slips that I'm sending around. And the transportation behavior slips are not entered into our Swiss data system. I'm in conversation with our transportation department because I think it's important that there's a little more ongoing documentation about bus issues. So, great question. Next slide, please.
Just to add a word, it's
Yes.
not just documentation, it's communication.
Yes,
Because there's
exactly.
many times when all of a sudden I find out that some kid's been written up 3 times.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Tier 3 behavior concerns. These are our most serious behavioral concerns. They typically involve fighting, theft, aggression, bullying. And this is where Kristen or I are involved, parents are involved. And typically we spend time not only through restorative conversations, but more discipline comes in at this level. Anything you'd want to add about tier 3?
I think one thing that at the LSCI training that we really walked away with is choices have consequences. And so we can have this approach of supporting and changing behavior without it being punitive. But at the same time, there's students that we really need to instill that in students in society. Choices have consequences, and they do here at school as well.
One of the things that I tell students when we're having these conversations is one of the things I love about being an elementary school principal is I have the role of educating them about the choices that they make, and as they grow older, what those choices could lead to. And that's real. That's real. And so we provide wraparound support, but we also do exactly that, talking about those choices.
Question?
Yes, please, Todd.
So on that line of fighting theft and aggression and bullying, the first 3 are relatively black and white, right? Obviously theft can also be, well, I just borrowed it. But bullying is best poorly defined, I think, in not just here. I'm not pointing at school. I'm saying in general, because even you, Kristen, you said someone looked at me funny today, right? And that's not bullying, but if it happens continually, then at what point do you guys get into that bullying thing? What's the boundaries for that?
We're going to talk about that in a couple minutes because there are some really defined guidance that we have from the state around what constitutes bullying and harassment and processes. There's actually documentation. We don't often go there, to be honest with you, at this level. But I have, in the last few years, had to go through that process with some children.
I think this goes back to your point earlier that you're making about parent partnership and making sure that you're letting teachers know there's things that happen that maybe that goes unreported that we don't know about. And if you know about it, and even if it can feel as like you're tattling in a way, which doesn't really feel good, but you're reporting. You're letting us know about a situation that might be happening again and again and again, and we need to know. So really, part of this is that parent partnership of reporting, and it doesn't have to be a full email. I love Parent Square messaging. It feels like text, so it can be really informal. You can't go back and edit though if you send a text, so just be forewarned. So yeah, just that, hey, I heard this today and I'm a little concerned. And then maybe a week later, oh, that same thing happened again. Can you check this out? And then we just keep track of that, because it is those little behaviors over time that can really feel like can potentially be bullying. So we need to keep an eye on that.
And that's one of the good things about our Swiss data system too. It will tell us that information because we can run individual student reports and see, okay, this is the third time this child has had an issue with that particular child. And then we can make decisions about whether we go into that formal process. Bus concerns, Linda Proctor, we will have Linda come and speak to copy with the principal. We haven't got a date firmed up, but before Christmas holiday break. Typically what the process is the driver will, if there's an issue, the driver speaks directly to the parent, either by phone call or in person if they happen to be at the bus stop. And then a bus write-up slip is sent to us. We've tried to refine this system because I'll tell you, they were sending them to us interdistrict mail. And so something happened on the bus and 2 days later we get a slip, and at that point the child doesn't even remember what happened. So we've said, please scan us that as soon as you get it, scan it to us so we can have that conversation, because our youngest kids don't even remember. As you know, we moved to a bus system that includes all children, K through 12 on the bus. There's been a lot of challenges around this. We're working towards, well, we're there. We have been working towards seating assignments on every bus, so we know exactly where each child is sitting. You know, it goes K all the way back to 12. One of the issues we're dealing with right now, though, is what do we do when we've got a 7th or 8th grade student who's having problems? They get moved to the front of the bus. Who are they sitting next to? Kindergarten students. So we're trying to figure out, and our buses are crowded. Not all of them, but some of them, we have 3 kids in a seat. So this is an ongoing work in progress that we're consistently working with. Kristen and I make visits to the buses almost every afternoon to support some kids that we know have troubles, have challenges on the bus, trying to support them. There is a tiered system on the bus as well, to answer that question you have, Todd. That there's steps, and the driver has to check and it's up to them to track on that. And like at step 3, there can be a 1-day removal from the bus, 5, 10, and we can remove a student from the bus permanently if those issues. Transportation is looked at as it's not a requirement of a school district to provide transportation to students. So that has only happened a couple times in my time here, never to one of our students, but it has happened that kids have been permanently removed. Please.
And then we do have that system, but also it is at the discretion of the transportation supervisor. So Linda Proctor might say, yeah, these are the steps, but that behavior was so egregious that we are going to remove them for a day or 2 days or whatever. So while we do have that process, there's times where it's superseded.
Did you have?
So, obviously, I'm familiar with this process. Is there going to be some sort of tiering on the type of offense there was? Because that was the one thing I noticed, that littering on the bus is same level of incident as bouncing around between seats, is the same level of incident as pushing another child, which to me, littering is a little bit
Exactly.
lower on the list. Pushing a child on the bus or hitting another child
Yep.
is extremely high.
Yep.
Right? And they were all being treated as just one, oh, they're all the same. They're not listening to the bus driver. Well, no, to me, there's some that are bigger. And then the communication, you know, a couple of years ago, literally, I was told that Jesse 5 incidences, and I was like, wait a minute, I haven't heard a thing about it.
No idea.
And you know that, and I'm kind of saying that for the crowd. And have those things been addressed at all? Has anything changed?
This summer, we had a meeting with our whole admin team and all the drivers and Linda to have conversations. The form was revised a little bit, but it's an ongoing. I 100% agree with you that we look at them separately and we'll call and say, hey, this doesn't make sense for this level of behavior that you're at step 3. So it's a work in progress. Anything?
I just the integration between transportation and the school.
Yep.
Personally, my opinion doesn't matter. I think the building should be central point because they see
Yep.
something happened on the bus this morning, something happened at lunch this afternoon, and make that connection with transportation.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Todd. Next slide, please. We have what's called a threat assessment protocol. I've probably had to use this 4 or 5 times in my tenure here. This again is a very formalized process like the bullying and harassment process. This is for very serious when a child says something like, I'm going to bring a weapon to school tomorrow. We have a trained team. There's only certain people in our building who can do threat assessments. We go through that process. We meet with the parent. The parent is a part of that. They have to come in and there's different levels. So I've only done a threat assessment level 1, which means no significant threat. A high, and it's a very prescribed, and depending on which boxes you checked at the end of that process, it tells you whether this needs to go on to a level 2 or can be resolved at a level 1. I really appreciate that we have this in place because it really helps us to document, formalize, involve parents. We have involved law enforcement in the past. More at this level to bring awareness to children and families how incredibly serious. You cannot use those words at school ever, because some kids, yeah, they need to learn that at a young age. Yes.
Happen anymore or suspended.
It's never happened here. I've never expelled a student. I've definitely suspended students for this sort of thing. Expulsion is you are out for, never done one. So I think it's for eternity. You can't come back to this school district.
And I believe that the state laws around expulsion changed last year or the year before to limit the ability to do those permanent expulsions. They've changed some of the definitions and shifted it to temporary suspensions in most cases, but there are still a few situations where expulsions are not just warranted, but required by state law.
Slide, please. This is a really exciting new step our district has taken in the last 2 years. I don't know if many of you remember Ellen Wallace, who was our student support specialist. She and Marty were here for, gosh, almost 30 years, and they handled much of the behavioral concerns that arose in our school. After Marty and Ellen retired, we went to a model that many school districts have adopted across the state for behavior technicians. And this is a certificated role that people have. We have two folks in our building who've received that certification. And then above that certification is a, what is the B? Board certified behavior analyst, and that is at a PhD level position. And we have an amazing woman who has joined our staff, a .8. She works at both buildings. And the work that she's doing is incredible for us. Her role is to go in, use her expertise to, when we have ongoing behavioral concerns, she goes in and engages in observations in the classroom and at recess. She develops a plan for that child, and then our behavior technicians implement that plan with support from her. It's been really powerful to have her support. We have all learned so much. Teachers can fill out a form asking for her input and guidance. And even if it's not a child who needs a long-term, full-blown plan, she consults with and supports our teachers in developing processes. Brooke.
And a 0.8 means an 80% of full-time.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. This is great. Is this something when it gets into this terrain that the parents are brought into as well?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And sorry. go
Let me
on.
let me clarify. if the BCBA is just coming in and providing consultation to a teacher and there's no formalized plan in place, not necessarily, but with a formalized plan, yes, parents are.
What is the staff person's name? The
The
PhD
BCBA?
person who is in this role now?
Her name is Manya Ralowski.
Thank
Yes,
you.
You're welcome. Yes. Yes, she does. Yeah, 2.5 days here, 2.5 days, middle school, high school. Yep. Any other questions on that? All right, yes.
I have a question, just like how would a student get into that position? Like, does the teacher or can the parent be like, look, my kid doesn't speak up for himself, but they're having a really hard time. Do they go to that? Or I see the consistent underlined meaning like maybe they've tried everything else. You guys have tried everything.
We, and we're going to talk about our student support team. So every 2 weeks, we meet with a team of people, mental health therapists, our BCBAs, our CBTs, and we talk about children who've had repeated tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors. And then at that point, we decide whether a BCBA intervention is necessary. So it's definitely a step-by-step process that uses data to make those decisions. So this is Swiss that I was talking about, that blue slip that went around. This is just a quick overview. It's computer-based, it's online. It's where we enter information from our blue slips. We can look at patterns when our student support team meets. We only look at it quarterly with teachers. We don't look at it, but our student support team looks at it every 2 weeks. And we're able to quickly identify, who's had write-ups, consistent repeating write-ups, where are the areas in the school that need more support. It's just really critical to our work. And again, like it says at the bottom, from reacting to behavior to proactively being able to identify where those areas of concern are and how we respond to those. Next slide, please. Oh, we already talked about that. That's that form that I showed you. And again, the language is aligned with our Swiss entry areas, so we get consistent information included. Next slide, please. This is an example. There's many reports that we can print and review. This is just one. What time of day? 2 o'clock, end of the day. What's going on? Everybody's tired. Yes.
Thank you. The data that's captured, it includes the one who is potentially harming or harming, and then the one who is the recipient of the harmful behavior. So if you were to look up the data, you could see someone on both ends of that. Is that correct?
No, to be
Okay.
honest with you, we do not mention the other student's name in the reports. I mean, we know who it is, but we know, but we don't put it in the system because we don't want the names of I don't want to use the word victims because it's such an extreme, but the child who had that behavior to them. However, and I think you could speak to this, informally definitely track who those kids are, that if there's repeated behaviors. Okay. This is the student support team I was talking about. Principal, assistant principal, our behavior technicians, our school psychologist, Erin Gutzmer, and our mental health therapists. One exciting piece of news I wanted to share is for the last 2 years, we've written a grant to the Whidbey Community Foundation because we don't have a full-time school counselor or full-time mental health therapist. We've written a grant to receive additional mental health supports in the school, and we were just advised that we were awarded a $9,500 grant. Kathy Hine, who's a local therapist, art therapist, but she's done all kinds of therapy over her years. Actually grew up with her. We went to school together. She's amazing. She'll be back this year, 2 days a week, providing small group and individual mental health supports as well. And that's really cool because Marguerite she doesn't have enough time to see all the kids who need that support. So Kathy will be starting the week of November 13th. We've already started a list of kids. This week we started our SEL social emotional learning survey. that every child grades 2 through 5 take. It asks a series of questions basically about how are they doing? How are you feeling safe? And then we look at that data. Aaron's already talked to a few kids who, from the survey results, we know they need some extra support. And then those kids will go on the list. And we always reach out to parents before those kids are served by Kathy, but we're super excited to have her back. We started this week. It's ongoing. It takes a while for it to be done. Yeah. All right. Yes.
That parents can request in terms of like.
Absolutely. We're even talking about, and we haven't made a decision yet of how it feels to perhaps have some focused content groups, like children who've experienced grief, those sorts of things. So we're kind of in process with our student support team to determine how those groups will look. But yes, you can just reach out via email to Kristen or I if you're interested in learning more about that. Next slide, please. This is the bullying and harassment. There is a definition that comes down from the state for us, and you can see that it's that repeated, harmful, intentional acts. It also varies by developmental level, how if we have a kindergartner who's got a friend that he's mad at every day, we're not going to likely go through that full process. But when we have an older student who we can see that it's repeated and it's ongoing and it's intentional, then we have a process that we go through, and we use this definition. And there's actually, on the next slide, you'll see it. It's like the threat assessment. There's an actual protocol that we go through and check boxes to determine if this does qualify under that language. This is state law, this bullying and harassment protocols and procedures. Slide, please, Christy. This is also something that you should know about if you don't. This is a way that you can either anonymously or non-anonymously report concerns that you have. If you don't feel comfortable coming to us, but you know something's going on, this is a way that you can report that. Christy, anything you'd add?
So I receive all of them and then I send them out to who should be taking care of it. So if it's a crack in the cement or something, then it goes to the facilities, of course. If it's something happening at the community center, we'll go to Gail Lavasser, who's the director there. If it's something for each of the buildings, I'll look up if it's student is, which grade they're in. I'll send it to the principal to handle. So.
And this is the way that some of the harassment and bullying information comes to us, is through this process. Next slide, please. This is just an excerpt from the bullying and harassment form. You've got the definition, the look fors that we check. You know, this is an investigation we go through, basically. The impact, and we spend a lot of time with the victim and the victim's family. I've only had to do, like I say, a couple of these formals when it's just all the other processes that we have in place have not worked. That's the point where we go to this process, and typically it involves bringing in mental health services and other wraparound supports. Compass Mental Health has a program called the WISE Team. If you haven't heard of it, it's just an amazing program that provides mental health therapists, folks who work directly with the children. It's just a wonderful program, and we're so grateful that it's here in our community. And there have been times where we have made a referral for a family if a child has gone through. So families get referred for a whole range of reasons, but it's a blessing to have that service in our community. Next slide, please. Is that it?
Can I make a quick
That's it.
plug for Compass?
Todd.
Okay, so I've actually used that Compass Wise program, and that team is 4 people. There's what I'll call a project manager who actually manages the entire thing. There is I forget what they call it, parent support partner or something like that, who is basically a counselor to work with the parent, okay, because parents feel alone and lost when they're having some challenges with their kid. And then the child has two counselors. One is more of a formal counselor that does, what you might consider traditional counseling. And then they have a peer counselor that plays with the kids and they go out and play soccer or ride bikes or do knitting or whatever it is in a counseling setting. And that combination of those three people working as a team is extremely valuable. And don't hear about that system and somebody says something to you about it, do not go, oh my God, I don't need that. Okay. They've said it, you probably should really look into it. When I say you need it, I'm just saying, look into it. I can tell you,
Thank you for
that's
that
just a
plug, Todd.
testimonial.
Yep. Yes.
How do parents find out more about that or get connected if they're interested?
You can reach out directly to Kristen or I or Erin Gutzmer, our school psychologist. That's all we have. It was a lot. So I'd love to hear your questions, comments.
Well, it's more of a comment.
Okay.
And I know Todd touched on it a little bit with the bus. And some things I've run into recently, most of 90% of my problems with the school right now fall down under communication, like a breakdown of communication.
Okay.
And I think it applies to this because if I've noticed teachers, something might stop at the teacher and not go up appropriately to maybe to Erin or to you. And I was wondering if there's a more centralized way that do you guys just talk to each other, or is there like a centralized way that communication's being shared?
We have something, in fact, we've got it today in here. After this, we do something called Data Team, and we do 6-week cycles. We bring in a substitute who floats through the school. We can only do about 6 teachers at a time. And we literally sit down with the teacher, or psychologist, 2 of us, our worker reading teacher, and we look at every single child on the class list. How are they doing academically? How are they doing emotionally and socially? That is the time that teachers should bring forward to us. I mean, they can email us anytime or call us or stop in, but that's the formal process. And I would love to talk to you after and find out what's going on, Lauren. Thank you. Yes, and then you, Anna. Oh, okay.
I was just gonna say, as a taking the temperature of the school, how often are things rising up? Is it like every day? There's every week?
Great question. We have blue slips every day. I will say that. Some people are more enthusiastic about filling out blue slips than others. And sometimes we say, this is really a tier 1 and we'll bring it back. What would you add? It's rare to get a tier 3. I mean, maybe once a month.
I think tier 3 is pretty rare, but we have a lot of students who are experiencing things outside of school. And so the things that they're experiencing manifest in different behaviors. And so it's not a reflection on our school, but just who we're serving, that there are a lot of tier 2 behaviors across the entire population of school. And but what's great about that is that we're addressing those every single day, and sometimes with the same student. And we're hoping that will lead to long-term behavioral change.
Yeah, following up on the communication front, 2 things. One, we found that with Parent Square, there's certain roles or staff that aren't on it or don't use it or are discouraged from using it. And so when we're trying to communicate across teachers and staff, it's a little bit challenging because some people want email, some people want Parent Square, but if they have to all be together, it just gets messy and communication can get lost or breaking down. So that's just something to name.
Thank you.
And then I have a question about how do you communicate with parents in the event that there's some significant school threat, like a shooter or, some significant event?
If that happens, typically, even if it happens at a different school, typically the superintendent's office will put out a communication to the entire, all families in the district. Actually, Christy puts that.
And part of that is we want the people in the building to be dealing with the situation. So it gets kicked up to the district office so that they can deal with communication while the people on site are dealing with the site.
The last coffee with the principal, the safety director was here, so you can go back and watch that and it would provide a lot of information, probably answer some questions.
The one good thing about the Parent Square question, all of the Parent Square messages also go through email. So it doesn't get locked in Parent Square, just like you will get an email, or if you chose to have text, you also get a text, but it will all go there. However, the nice thing about Parent Square, you can find it all in one place. So for the teachers too, if you send a message via Parent Square, they're getting it via email. How they respond to you, they should be doing it through Parent Square because they should do it the same way you send it.
Well, and I've just recently dealt with that because I was communicating with Brandon's teacher via Parent Square, and then the last few message I had no answers, and so I'm guessing she's really busy. But it's also I'm like, okay, now do I need to switch to emails to get an answer? What should I do? And that's where I'm
Let us
stuck.
know.
Okay,
We will follow
so
up.
I will.
Thank you.
I know that our kids' teachers had really great communication from regarding here are the times that I'm typically checking and responding. So I think that's helped kind of level set on those expectations or knowing exactly when you can expect them to check and respond. Probably not consistent across everyone, but just a really great best practice maybe. One question regarding Parent Square, just because I'm naive about this and we're talking about it,
Yeah.
it's very much not about this topic, but when you are sending a message to a group, typically if my husband and I are on a chat together with a teacher, I'll get a response, but I don't see him on it necessarily. So I'm just wondering on that process when it comes back, is it a group but you only see yourself on it or how that works?
So, so there's two things in Parent Square. There's posts, which go out usually to a whole class, the whole school, the whole district. Then there's messages, right? And the little looks like a text, right? There's two ways to send a text. You can send it as a group text where everyone sees it the same way you have like a chat, a texting group, right? And everyone gets it. And then there's direct where you can send it to the whole group, but then when you reply, replying individually. And they can choose to reply to the whole group, or they could choose to reply to one. So that could be why they're not responding to the whole group. They're responding to one.
The whole group being you and your husband, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It's like blank.
Yes, like BCC. Exactly. It's just like BCC. That's exactly it. Yeah.
But
So-
it's not working the way it sounds like it's intended. So maybe there's some parent training or resourcing that you could do so that we understand these different modalities of messaging, because it's definitely leading to communication breakdown for us.
Absolutely.
Let's do a coffee with the principal. Could you lead one of those, Christy? Great. We'll get that on the calendar. And please feel free to reach out. If you feel like you're not getting a response, I mean, typically we do say you should hear something back no later than 48 hours. I really expect sooner than that. But if you don't hear within 48 hours, please let Kristen or I know so we can help.
Just wondering if these slides will be available on the website or somewhere. Thank you.
Right after, on the elementary school website, there's I think it's under activities, but there is the coffee with the principal and all of the videos. You can go back, and in fact, there is one on Parent Square last year. You could go back and watch that one, but all the slides from everyone is in there. So you can go back and see those.
Sounds like I just need you in my Rolodex.
I was gonna say, Christy had a really great tip last year that I've taken to using is that the search function on the website is very useful. I find the way the website is organized not compatible with my brain. I can't find anything, but if I just type it in the search bar, like, coffee with the principal, it'll pull it right up. And I've found that very.
And then my email is, I have multiple emails, but info@sw.wednet.edu comes to me. And so if there's ever tip that you have for the website, I run the website as well. So it started off from IT. So there are things that I don't think make sense. And I'm always trying to fix them based on what people need. But if you're like, oh, I wish this was over here, I will put it there. So just send me those tips. And then if you have any question, I mean, I get questions every day from, I don't know, what, yeah, just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I would say that we are, with the exception that students that are on a 504 or have an IEP have more support. So their support team is wider. And so sometimes maybe it's not me directly if they have an IEP that they might be meeting with, but maybe in their IEP, they have some service minutes around SEL, and their case manager or their special ed teacher has a plan in place for that. And so they might be the first one to be consulted depending on the behavior. Yeah. Did that answer the question? And then with 504s, they would have accommodations. And then Carly Hudson, one of our certified, is it certified behavior tech? She often checks in with those students and then is providing extra and additional support for that. One thing that I recommend to parents, Erin actually is more knowledgeable about that, and she sometimes works really closely with families, getting them the resources that they may need to connect with outside support. But I would just say, if you're in communication with your child's teacher, or even me, if you know that I'm someone that might be working with your student, or Carly, if you're using that shared language so that we can really be in support of the work, I think that's the best thing is that it's coming from the parents. And then in more complicated situations, we might have some agreement where we are able to communicate with that provider with your permission.
That's what I was going to note. There's something called a release of information form. And if you want, if your child's seeing an outside therapist and you want that therapist to be able to communicate with us so we're on the same page, just say, can I complete a ROI?
For Brandon, he has a therapist now and sign the paperwork so that he can.
And we have those forms, or the doctor's office has those forms? Yes? Well, thank you so much. Was this helpful? Great. Good. I'm so glad. I'm so appreciative of you being here. If you have topics that you want to make sure we cover, please let us know. We're really open to your input and suggestions. So thank you for being a part of our school community. Yes, Brooke. Awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, this is amazing. All the resources that you've put into place and into practice, like, this is incredibly impressive, and I'm very grateful as a parent.